Stas 23 here. In today's Knife Therapy, we have the Civivi Synergy 3. This is a Jim O. Young design, and it started out with this premium version with the integral titanium and I forgot, maybe M390 steel. And then they did the budget Civivi version. They came out with the trailing point, and then after that, the Tanto, and now we have the drop point. Probably my favorite of the three. These come in at $93.50. And let's get some quick specs out of the way. You have a total length of 7.75 inches, so it's a medium-sized knife. Blade length of 3.25 inches, a grip area from here to the very back of 3.6 inches, a handle scale thickness of 0.56, love that, and a closed width in the pocket from here to here of 1.28 inches, blade stock thickness of 0.12 inches, and behind the edge thickness on my particular knife is around 15 thousandths, sharpened at 20 degrees per side. All right, let's take a closer look at this. Now, for me, the reason why this one's more appealing than the other two blade shapes is just because, for me, this is a lot more useful for the type of cutting I do. You have the nice drop point, and even though I would have loved to see that tip a little bit lower, I like my tips almost underneath the pivot, just so I don't have as much of a, abrupt belly going on there. But this one's still, pretty darn useful. You do have a top swedge on here that goes all the way down to that tip, so it's going to give you a nice, precise point right there for your piercing task, doing detail work, or anything you want to use that tip for. This blade is a black wash. You have a black wash finish on here, and you have a tan G10 scales. You can also get this knife in two other variations. You can get it in a Damascus blade with some carbon fiber scales that look really, really nice. And you can also get it with the black wash blade with the black G10 scales. I don't know if there's any other variations coming out, but that's all I see on the sites as of now. Let's go back to the blade. You have a Nitro V blade on here. Nitro V is a great budget stainless steel. Some people use it in higher end knives as well. And Civivi does a pretty good job with it, especially on this one, when you're going to see it later on down in the cutting portion. There is no jimping up there, but it's not really needed. I didn't see any point. You do have a crown spine up here, so it feels nice. And it's not slippery because you have that finish on there. It gives you a little bit extra traction. You do have a sharpening notch. Does clear that plunge, and you probably have a couple of sharpenings before it starts to widen up in the back right there. The blade has a saber grind on it, and it comes down to a pretty thin edge with a decently thin edge bevel. Let's see how that performs. Right off the back, I noticed the knife was super, super sharp from factory, and a few times you can see me, I get caught up on the choil area, but that was my bad. Once I adjusted for that, no problem. Slicing really well. Drop point blade is excellent, even though it has a little bit more belly than I typically love, but had no issues with this feeling like it was a slide out of the cut or anything. And so far, handle feels really, really good. I think it's going to be really good later on down the road. Now we're going to test the ergos in this pine 2x4, and I'm going to do some light cutting just to see how that edge feels, and I can make those really, really fine curls no problem. So I started increasing the pressure, and man, oh man, was I right. This contoured scales on this knife is so comfortable. I'm able to get a lot of pressure and power behind that cut because of how comfortable it is with no hot spots whatsoever. Very enjoyable to do this. I love that. Now we move on to the 1/2-inch twisted sisal rope, and here's where this knife's going to really shine on these flat cutting surfaces, and that's where that extra bit of belly helps out doing this type of cuts, skinning, any type of slicing type motions. It's going to really, really excel. And it was excellent to feel that this knife still had a great amount of bite to that edge, requiring me a little amount of pressure pushing into the rope. It felt really good doing this test, and that's not something I always say. It was comfortable in the pinch grip, especially because of the design of that handle, how it has that little hump in the back. It really pushes on the palm, so you don't have a lot of movement. Had a ton of control there. we end up getting 45 cuts done, which is really good. And then now we move on to this portion of the testing, and we'll see how it does. Much of anything in this part of the testing, it should do really, really well because it has great edge geometry, nice and thin, and they even put a good thinner edge bevel on this. I think it was 20 degrees per side, much better than their 24 to 26 that they usually put. So it was performing so good. I mean, you wouldn't believe how much of a difference it makes when you have a 24 degree edge bevel to just a 20. Of course, I prefer 15 to 17, but you're not going to get that most of the time. So 20, I can do with that. And then if I want to thin it out myself, I can. But this knife was just performing very, very well. I've had some issues with Nitro V in the past, but this one feels really good. Still has incredible bite. You know, I can tell going through this denim. Now, one thing about this denim and that the extra belly, you can see me having to make multiple slices, and that's only because that it's not getting as much contact surface whenever I'm pulling through. So still did good. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that cutting. I definitely enjoyed it with this one. This one was a breeze. That edge felt really, really good. Let's check this out. Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't know if they maybe heat treated this one a little higher or what the deal is, or maybe it's just because they lowered that edge bevel down some. But man, just watch. This one has no, like I could have cut a ton more. Look at this. Look, that's after, and I'm able to do an S curve. Excellent job. Also, one thing I love about Nitro V and say like 14C and even the AUS 10 is I can go and strop this knife up and it's going to be just as sharp as it was whenever I got it. And after you sharpen it, you'll better strop it up easy as well. It's a very easy steel to strop back up and get that keen sharpness, as long as you don't have any edge damage, but you'll still be able to, you know, strop back all the areas that still, you know, have somewhat of an edge left to it. Let's close it up and take a look at the action. That's where another place where this knife shines is the deployment of this knife. Well, they give you a minimal flipper tab, and usually I don't like that, but it's nice and comfortable. They do have some jimping there that helps grab a hold to that finger, but just watch this. This thing rockets out. And that is because if you can see, the front of that flipper tab is in front of that pivot. So the further it is in this direction, you're going to have more momentum as you pull that back. It's like, you know, just like a cantilever or whatever you call it. You pull that back and you got contact, 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 and your blade's that far out before, you know, it leaves the finger. So you have tons of momentum, plus the detent is dialed in excellent. It's ceramic bearings and ceramic detent ball. Yeah, the action on this is very nice. It's not a real drop shut blade. It's you know, a thinner blade, and more than respectable. And I'm sure it'll break in over time, you know, the more and more you flip it. But the flipping action, outstanding. All right, let's close it up and take a look at the hardware. You have black-coated hardware, Civivi branded pivot here, Torx T8 on these body screws, and all of the hardware is countersunk flush with the scales. You have this cool pattern in the G10. It offers some good grip. It's not overly aggressive or anything, and they kind of, you know, knock the peaks off so it's not, you know, sharp. And also they have a nice chamfer going all the way around. Not to mention you have a slight contour to these scales. That paired with the extra thickness, you know, anything over 0.5, anything over a ½ inch thick on the scales is going to make it more comfortable. Not to mention you have that downward arc that I always talk about. That right there, paired with those contoured scales, I knew this thing would be super, super comfortable. And I was right. It was beyond comfortable using this knife. I didn't have any hot spots, nothing that was uncomfortable in the least. You do have a big old lanyard hole right there for all you lanyard people out there. I could have done with a hidden lanyard post, would have been nice. You do have a G10 backspacer that comes up about a quarter of the scales. You have a deep carry pocket clip that they did inset. Love seeing that. And they countersunk the screws, so nothing should get hung up on that. But it is tip up, right hand carry only, unfortunately. Let's check it out in the pocket. They have nice ramp on there. I thought it was going to bother me whenever I was cutting. It didn't affect me any. Goes in and out of the pocket nicely, and I was kind of worried because it's sitting on top of that texture, and it completely disappears in the pocket. Maybe over time that texture would hurt something, but like I said, they knocked off the peaks to it, so no problem. They just missed a mark on putting it left side as well. Now let's take a look at the inside of the knife. You do have some internal milling on this lock side. Hopefully you can see that in the back right there. And let's see, none on the top because, as you can see, the top is just one thick slab of G10. So the knife is fairly lightweight. Let's check it out on the scale. First off, in grams, it's 103.9 grams or 3.6 ounces. So yeah, that's outstanding. All right, let's open it up and take a look at the lockup. Your lock is sitting at, I'd say, around 50%. And no up and down whatsoever, no side to side whatsoever. Mine has a bank vault lockup. The access to the lock bar, I'm gonna say it's okay. This does come down a little bit lower right here, so you can grab a hold to that, and it does have a little bit of texturing, but it's still not the easiest. Now, like I said, I use this part of my thumb and do it like this. That's how I do those type, and it's no problem whatsoever. I'm not going to call it bad. I'm just going to not call it great. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Civivi Conspirator and the Send-Cut Sashi. Both of them, these two are both larger in overall dimensions. You have about the same grip area though as the Sashi. Next up, we have the Civivi Chevalier and the Civivi Elementum. It's right in the middle of those two. Lastly, we have the Ontario Wrap Model 1 and Wrap Model 2, right in the middle of those two as well. All right, now for my nitpicks and complaints, maybe, give us a little bit more sharpening choil by going up some. That would have given you more sharpening life here. Maybe a little bit more lock bar access, just, makes it more enjoyable to disengage that lock. And lastly, my lefties out there, it'd have been nice to see them tap this for left-handed tip up as well. But overall, I love the knife. Now, $93.50, that's a hefty price tag for, a budget knife. Now, do I feel like this is a strictly budget knife? No, it definitely feels like a, one of those more premium G10 knives that you have out there. You have nice milling on the G10. You have nice and comfortable contoured scales, comfortable in hand. It's ground nice and thin, nice blade shape, very, very snappy action. So it's got a lot going for it. If this design does it for you, if you like the overall aesthetics and you like the blade shape, you want something that's nice and comfortable in hand, I'd say go for it if the price is, in your range. But it's just hard for me to recommend this, when somebody emails me and says, hey, I'm looking for a knife, I don't want to spend over, say $100. I don't know if this is going to be the one. I would probably go somewhere else with that because you could save money and buy something a lot cheaper and, have just as good of a knife, even in Civivi's lineup. So, I don't think it's ridiculously overpriced or anything. You are paying Mr. Jim O. Young, as well, the collaboration fee or whatever they charge. I don't know what they get paid on that, but that's definitely, an aspect of that. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I'm going to see y'all on the next one. Peace.